Welcome to the 6th video in the 10-part series, Adapting to Project Professional 2010. In this video, we're going to cover the team planner and resource management. In general, you still manage resources the same way you do in projects now as you would in the past. However, there's some nice new features that make it easier to address resource overallocations. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we add resources to our schedule. I'm going to click on the Resource tab and click on the Resource Sheet view. You can see I already have some resources here on the schedule. If I need to add a resource, I can just go ahead and type that person. By default, that resource is still added as a work type resource, which essentially means that it's a human resource. Now, I can add other resource types as well, just by changing this to material or cost. But another option is I can click on this Add Resources button at the top of the screen, and I can choose resources from my Active Directory, my address book in Outlook, or I can just go ahead and create a stub for a resource. Here, for example, I'll create a cost resource. You'll see that I created a new resource stub, and I can just start typing in there. Now you also notice on this Add Resources button, there's an option to build team from enterprise. If you happen to be connected to Microsoft Project Server, then you'd be building your resources from this menu item here and pulling resources in from a centralized resource pool. You still do have the capability of creating a shared resource pool just using MPP files, and there hasn't been much of a change there. Now let's go ahead and add some of these resources to a task. I'm going to go back to the Gantt chart view, and I'm going to go to this Resource Names field, and I can type in Jane Smith. And as I'm typing, Project recognizes that that person is in the pool, or resource sheet rather, and automatically adds her to the task. Now I can add more by going in and just typing comma, and I can enter someone else's name. Now I typed in Steve Marks ending with a Z. Now Steve has now been assigned to my project, to this task rather, but let's go back to the resource sheet, and you'll notice I actually mistyped it. Steve Marks is already in my resource sheet. His name is actually spelled with an S. I accidentally typed it with a Z, and that's been added. So we actually don't want that to happen. This is such a common mistake. So one of the things that Microsoft Project has done to make it easier to prevent this from happening is provided a new user interface for us to add these resources. Let's go back to the Gantt chart now, and here's that Jane Smith that I was talking about. Now I want to add Steve this way, and I can also add John. So now I have these checkboxes that I can use, and once I mouse out of that field, you can see that they've been assigned. So that's one way to add resources to a task. A much more common way, of course, would be to use this split view. If you're familiar with using Microsoft Project's window menu and choosing split view, this is the same one. So I was at the task tab, I came over here to the properties area, and I clicked on display task details, and that opened the split view. So I can go over here and assign Jane. And one of the other nice features is I can go ahead and assign other people to the task, but I could also say, well, this is a 5-day work week, so it's going to automatically, if I click OK, automatically assign people to 40 hours. I might say that John's only going to work part-time, and there, I've just changed that assignment there. I'm going to close this view. I can do that by double-clicking on the line, or I can just toggle it by using the icon. Okay, so let's go ahead and add Jane Smith to one more task. Now what you might have noticed on the left-hand side here are these two people that showed up. These little red people indicate that there's an overallocation. And the message when I mouse over says this task has resources that have been assigned and are overallocated. So it gives me a little bit more of a notice, and I can right-click here, and I can say reschedule to available date. Now if you look to the right hand side, you'll see the start date says 5/18 right now. If I click this button, notice that it moved and changed the start date from 5/18 to 5/25. The Gantt chart did also change as well. I'm going to go ahead and press the undo button. So that allowed Project to just sort of find the best time for Jane to do the work based on all of her other assignments. There's another way that I could also fix this overallocation. I can come here to the Resource tab and use a new function called Team Planner. Team Planner essentially lets me look at all of my resources here along the left-hand side and all the tasks that they're assigned to on the right-hand side. If I were to mouse over here a little bit, you can see that Jane is actually overallocated. That's what these red lines are showing here, because she's receiving the hardware and validating the purchase with IT at the same time. Now, it might be okay that she's doing both tasks and I just need to assign different hours to her. It may not be okay that she's doing these things together, and we need to align them a little bit differently. I can go into the Gantt chart and change the dates for these tasks, or I can just change her individual assignment. Now, I might actually receive some sort of a warning informing me of a schedule change that it might affect the project, which I did right here. I'll just click OK. But you can see now that I've just moved out this overallocated task. One of the other nice things that the Team Planner allows me to do as well is assign tasks that don't have any resources on them right now. So here's this install hardware task, and here's Tim Smith that's not doing anything, and Tim's in IT, and Tim can install hardware. So I can just drag this task over and assign it to Tim. And I'm going to put it right after receiving the hardware. There, now Tim's been assigned to the install hardware task. Let's look at what that does to the Gantt chart. First, you can see here's Tim assigned to this task, where no one was assigned earlier. And if I just scroll over here a little bit and zoom in, you can see that Jane is still working on the same task. We didn't actually move that task where we reassigned some of the activities. It just created a split task. So Jane's not doing work for a period of time in order to not be overallocated, and then is continuing the effort. I'm just going to go and do a few undos so we get back to where we were before. There's one other way that I can address an overallocation. I can do that by right-clicking on that red indicator and choose Fix in Task Inspector. The Task Inspector gives me lots of details. One, it tells me the task that we're working with. It says that resources are overallocated. This is the resource that's overallocated. It gives me an option to reschedule, same thing as right-clicking and choosing Reschedule. It gives me an option to get right to Team Planner, so I don't need to go to the Resource tab and click Team Planner. There's just a quick link right there. It also tells me what the factors are. So it shows the start and finish of the task. It shows what the affecting task is, and allows me to understand why on earth this person is overallocated. Now, it may be that these two tasks here are just something that Jane's going to do. She is going to work over hours, and we just don't want to be informed of that anymore. So I can select those tasks and just say, don't show it anymore. Sorry, I can do it one at a time. There. So Jane is still overallocated, but I'm just saying don't warn me about it anymore. Of course, I can always go back and turn that on. So this is essentially the major new features in resource management within Microsoft Project. One is we get this new capability to drop down and pick the resources. We get to keep the split view, so it's no longer under the window menu because there is no window menu anymore. We have this new task inspector and the really nice new cool feature, which is the Team Planner that allows you to drag and drop and assign resources to the tasks so that they fit within an appropriate timeline and address any overallocations.